Baton Rouge rapper NBA YoungBoy didn't just move from the streets to a mansion on a hill. He bought an entire mountain. We're not talking about a house or a cabin. He owns the actual mountain and officially named it Gravedigger Mountain. I'm being dead serious. As one of the most streamed artists on Earth, YoungBoy is currently running his empire from this massive property in Utah, and today, we're taking an inside look at how he's living up there. We're breaking down everything: the lifestyle, the security detail, the horses, and the heavy weaponry at the front gate. Make sure you stick around until the end, because if you click off early, you're going to miss the most insane part of this story. Stay locked in, because this gets wild. First, let's get into the why. You might be asking yourself why one of the biggest names in rap is tucked away on a mountain in Utah. It's definitely not the first place you'd expect to find NBA YoungBoy. When you think of him, you think of Baton Rouge and the trenches. You think of hits like Outside Today or Bandit, a guy who rose up from one of the toughest environments in Louisiana and built a music career that has become an absolute juggernaut. And when you look at his statistics, the numbers he's putting up are honestly mind-blowing. I need you to really grasp just how massive his impact is. For 5 consecutive years, he reigned as the most streamed artist on YouTube across the entire United States. We aren't just talking about the top rapper. He was the #1 artist, period. In 2023, the only person ahead of him in overall streaming was Peso Pluma. This man is a literal streaming powerhouse. His albums drop consistently, his fan base is incredibly loyal, and he managed to build all of this while navigating legal battles that would have crushed most people. So, here is how the Utah situation actually started. Back in 2020, young boy born Kentrell Deshaun Galden was filming a music video in Baton Rouge when he was hit with federal weapons charges. This wasn't a local issue. These were federal charges. He ended up spending most of 2021 in a Louisiana jail. But then, things took an interesting turn when his legal team made a strategic move. They petitioned the court to let him serve his house arrest at a multi-million-dollar mansion in Utah instead of staying in Louisiana. Surprisingly, the judge agreed. By late 2021, YoungBoy moved his family out to the Utah mountains. And that's when his entire world shifted. Honestly, are we even surprised that his house arrest turned out to be more cinematic than most people's actual lives? I'm certainly not. That's just how it goes with YoungBoy. Now, I need you to really lock in for this next part, because this isn't your typical story about a celebrity buying a big house. It goes much deeper than that. This is on a completely different level. YoungBoy first moved into a mansion in Mill Creek, Utah, specifically in the Olympus Cove neighborhood of Salt Lake City. And when I say this house is impressive, I mean it. We are talking about an 8,800 square foot estate featuring 4 bedrooms and 7 bathrooms. The home is designed with floor-to-ceiling glass walls in almost every room and includes a resort-style pool and a 5-car garage with a heated driveway. Because let's be real, YoungBoy isn't out there shoveling snow in the Utah cold. The interior is just as high-end, featuring a private elevator connecting the floors, marble bathrooms, and a primary suite equipped with its own fireplace. There's a game room with bunk beds for his kids, a designer pool table, and a custom-built recording studio right inside the house. Because of all that glass, every window offers panoramic views of the Salt Lake Valley, the Oquirrh Mountains, and the Great Salt Lake. On a clear day, he's looking out at some of the most beautiful landscapes in the country, all from the comfort of his own elevator. But here is where things get truly wild. The mansion alone wasn't enough. YoungBoy eventually acquired a second property in Huntsville, Utah, which sits on several acres of land. This is the property he officially named. This is where Gravedigger Mountain was born. He took that terrain, those acres of mountain land, and he claimed it, branded it, and called it Gravedigger Mountain. And just like that, it became one of the most iconic landmarks in all of hip-hop. Think about it. A rapper from Baton Rouge literally named a Utah mountain after his own brand and energy. It's become so famous that the second you mention Gravedigger Mountain, fans across the globe know exactly what you're talking about. I'm not even kidding. That is exactly how it went down. The name isn't just for show either. Gravedigger represents YoungBoy's entire mentality. He came from nothing and survived the streets, prison, and legal battles that would have buried anyone else's career. Instead of being buried, he's the one doing the digging. He took that isolation and confinement and transformed that mountain into a personal fortress, putting his own stamp on it. Just let that sink in for a second. This man literally named a mountain. Now that we've established he owns the land, let's get into what life is actually like up there. This is where the story gets really interesting. YoungBoy didn't just move to Utah to sit around and stare at the walls. He built an entirely different lifestyle on that mountain. It is nothing like what you'd expect from a global rap superstar. Seriously, you need to hear this. NBA YoungBoy, one of the hardest rappers in the game, spends his time riding horses across his own mountain. He is in full cowboy mode. In one of his videos, he mentioned that he actually learned how to ride in Eden, Utah. Journalists and creators who have visited Gravedigger Mountain have documented him just hanging out with his horses, his animals, and his family. One visitor described the experience as a genuine honor, noting that the vibe up there is strictly about him, his loved ones, his animals, and his mountain. I'm not even exaggerating. When I was researching this, I had to stop and laugh because only YoungBoy could transition from the streets of Baton Rouge to riding horses on a mountain he owns and named himself. It's legendary, and it isn't just horses. YoungBoy and his crew have been seen tearing through mountain trails on ATVs. We're talking about actual off-road paths carved right into the terrain of Gravedigger Mountain. Fans have documented all of this. There are clips floating around showing the scenery from the back of these bikes, and the views are incredible. You're looking at pure Utah wilderness, mountain ridges and open skies. It's a completely different world. Get this, when he announced his massive tour, he was already out there on the ATVs. Fresh out of jail, back on the mountain, and right back to the trails. Business as usual, Gravedigger Mountain never stops. This leads into a side of YoungBoy that doesn't get enough attention. The family man. On Gravedigger Mountain, that side of him really started to shine. YoungBoy moved to Utah with his partner at the time, Jaslyn Michelle Hayes, and they actually tied the knot on January 7, 2023, while he was still under house arrest. His wife even shared photos from a bridal studio in Salt Lake City's 9th and 9th neighborhood. Honestly, getting married while on house arrest is one of the most YoungBoy things I've ever heard. His children are up there with him as well. There are photos of him out in the snow holding a newborn against that massive mountain backdrop. His kids visit, they hang out, and they're a permanent part of the Gravedigger Mountain lifestyle. He was even spotted taking them to a local Utah barber. Just normal dad activities, only they're happening within his mountain empire. After his release from prison in 2025, one of the first photos to go viral was of him standing in the snow on the mountain holding an infant. He was back home. You can tell from those images that this place means something deep to him. It's not just real estate, it's his sanctuary. Now, this next part actually caught me off guard. While living in Utah, YoungBoy reportedly started looking into the LDS Church, the Mormon faith, which is obviously a huge part of the culture there. He never officially claimed he was converting, but the fact that he was curious enough to explore it says a lot about the reflection he was doing up there. When you're isolated at the top of a mountain with nothing but time, your family, and your own thoughts, you're bound to change. It really seems like YoungBoy used that time to look inward and grow. His legal team even had to petition a judge just to allow him to leave the property for therapy sessions, which the judge partially approved. So, picture the scene. He was attending therapy, studying religious texts, riding horses, and constantly recording music. That was the reality of the Gravedigger Mountain experience. Speaking of music, we can't overlook that custom-built studio inside the mansion. While everyone assumed house arrest would stall his career, it actually did the opposite. YoungBoy was releasing music at a rate that made artists who weren't even in legal trouble look lazy. The ultimate tribute to this era was his album literally titled Compliments of Gravedigger Mountain. He named an entire project after his land, giving fans a raw, unfiltered look at his life in isolation. It captured the loneliness, the reflection, and a drive that never faded. Critics and fans alike consider it some of his most introspective work, and every bit of it was born on that mountain. It's wild when you think about it. The place meant to be his punishment became the backdrop for his greatest creative era. The mountain didn't break him, it shaped him. Now, let's slow down and really look at what this mansion is like, because I don't think people realize just how luxurious it actually is. As I mentioned, we're talking 8,800 square feet, but the room-by-room details are on another level. The entire house is practically made of windows. These floor-to-ceiling glass walls weren't an accident. The architect designed the home specifically to blur the line between the indoor space and the nature outside. The listing describes the architecture as being specifically designed to flood every corner of the home with natural light, creating an atmosphere of total serenity. That is exactly the kind of vibe you expect from a $5.5 million estate. Because of those glass walls, you're looking at the Salt Lake Valley on one side and rugged mountain peaks on the other. Every single room in the house has a view, no exceptions. The master suite on the main floor is in a league of its own. It features a private balcony overlooking the nearly 1.5-acre lot, its own fireplace, and views that seem to go on forever. This is where YoungBoy starts his day on Gravedigger Mountain, waking up to a warm fire with the valley stretched out in front of him and that crisp mountain air outside. Honestly, it sounds incredible. Step outside and you'll find a resort-style pool. This isn't just a standard backyard setup, it's the kind of pool you'd find at a 5-star hotel in Vegas. It's perfect for those Utah summers, and with the mountains as a backdrop, you're essentially swimming with the best view in the entire state. Inside, the home is clearly built for his family. There's a game room equipped with bunk beds for his kids and a designer pool table in the main living area. It's not just a trophy house, it's a place where people actually live, where kids run around and there's real energy. Since YoungBoy is a big car enthusiast, the 5-car garage ensures his collection is well protected. But the one detail people often overlook is the heated driveway. Utah winters bring heavy snow and ice, and YoungBoy isn't out there dealing with that. The driveway has a built-in heating system that handles the winter weather automatically. No shoveling and no dealing with ice. You just pull up, park, and head inside. That's a different level of wealth right there. On top of that, the man has a private elevator that services every single floor. If he doesn't feel like taking the stairs, he doesn't have to. He just steps into his personal elevator, hits a button, and glides to whichever level he wants. Imagine having a home with its own elevator system. And we've mentioned it before, but it really deserves its own spotlight. The custom-built recording studio. This is exactly why he never stopped releasing music. This is why his period of isolation became a defining era instead of just a hiatus. At any hour of the day or night, YoungBoy could simply walk down the hall and start recording. There was no studio time to book and no engineers to coordinate with. Just him, his thoughts, and a microphone. That studio is likely where some of the most raw and honest music of his entire career was born. The entire property sits on 1.46 acres. When he purchased it back in April 2022, the price tag was around $5.4 million. By the time he listed it for sale in 2024, the market price was $5.5 million. Think about that. He lived in a $5.4 million mansion for over 2 years and walked away essentially breaking even. Not a bad outcome for a house arrest situation. All right, everyone. This is the moment I've been waiting for. We've covered the horses, the ATVs, the glass walls, the heated driveway, and that in-home elevator. Now, let's dive into the rest. But none of that, not the luxury or the views, prepares you for the reality of the security situation on Gravedigger Mountain. This isn't your typical celebrity security team with a few guys in suits. What YoungBoy has up there is military-grade protection. We're talking about guards in full tactical gear, rocking bulletproof vests, ski masks, and carrying AK-47s. I'm not exaggerating, and the local Utah news stations have the footage to prove it. When YoungBoy was released from prison in April 2025 and returned to the mountain, his neighbors in the Olympus Cove community noticed a massive shift. This wasn't something they were used to seeing in their neighborhood. Heavily armed guards were now patrolling the gates. One neighbor, Judy Zone, actually spoke to the local news station KUTV about her experience, and the story is unbelievable. She was stopped one Saturday by 2 members of YoungBoy's security detail. To be clear, she wasn't doing anything suspicious. She was actually heading over to bring him freshly baked cookies as a welcome home gesture. This woman was just trying to be a kind neighbor with some treats, only to be met by 2 men dressed entirely in black tactical gear and bulletproof vests. One of them had an AK-47 strapped to his chest, an AK at the entrance of a residential neighborhood in Salt Lake City. She told KUTV that the whole situation created a massive level of anxiety. Imagine just trying to deliver cookies and being met with ski masks and assault rifles. That is the scale of the security operation YoungBoy is running on that mountain. They are not playing games. To give you the full picture, YoungBoy's security team, as reported by KUTV Utah News, is out there in full tactical gear. We're talking blacked out outfits, ski masks covering their faces, bulletproof vests, and AK-47s strapped to their chests. These aren't just guys standing at a club entrance. They are manning the gates to an entire mountain community in Olympus Cove. For some context, Olympus Cove is a high-end, affluent neighborhood. It's filled with wealthy residents who moved to the Salt Lake City hills specifically for peace and quiet. Now, they're navigating armed guards and ski masks at their neighborhood entrance because their neighbor is NBA YoungBoy. But let's be real for a second and look at the why behind this. This level of security isn't random. YoungBoy has faced genuine danger throughout his life. He's been shot at and has survived life-threatening situations. He comes from an environment where self-protection isn't a choice. It's survival. Even though he's now tucked away on a mountain in Utah, he knows his profile is massive and his location is no secret. Fans swarm him constantly. After his prison release, he was literally mobbed at a local Utah mall. This security isn't about paranoia. It's a calculated necessity, especially now that the whole world knows exactly where Gravedigger Mountain is. That property has become a high-profile target. Whether it's fans, rivals, or just people looking for a glimpse of his life, having military-grade security on such a famous property makes complete sense from his perspective. But there is one detail that really stands out because it says everything about who YoungBoy is. Immediately after returning to the mountain following his prison release, one of the first things he did was buy a house for one of his security guards. He bought a home right near his own so the guard could be close by and on call whenever needed. Think about that. He didn't just hand over a paycheck. He provided a home so they could literally be neighbors. That level of generosity and loyalty is rare. It shows that his security team isn't just a group of employees. They are embedded in his world and live right there on the mountain with him. This is a massive operation. He is essentially running a fully secured, loyal compound on a mountain he named Gravedigger. Honestly, I'm not surprised. This is exactly the kind of energy YoungBoy carries. The wildest twist in this security story involves the neighbor Judy Zone, the woman who was stopped at the gate by guards with AK-47s. Despite that experience, she didn't have a single bad thing to say about YoungBoy himself. She actually described him as a very nice and kind young man, noting that he even called her ma'am. She even told him straight up that she had never listened to his music, yet they still had a respectful interaction. And he said, "This part is classic. I don't recommend it." The man actually told her not to listen to his music. That's hilarious and genuine. and it tells you everything you need to know. In his daily life on that mountain, YoungBoy isn't the caricature people project onto him. He's respectful to his neighbors and present with his family. He's got the horses, the ATVs, and the lifestyle, but he also has the AK toting guards and ski masks. Both of those realities exist at the same time. Now, I want to walk you through the legal timeline, because understanding it makes the story of Gravedigger Mountain even more impactful. It started in 2020 while YoungBoy was filming a music video in Baton Rouge. Police took him into custody and found a firearm in the vehicle, leading to federal weapons charges. These weren't minor offenses, this was a federal case. YoungBoy spent most of 2021 in a Louisiana jail awaiting trial. Then, in October 2021, his attorneys made their move, petitioning the court to let him serve his house arrest in the mountains of Salt Lake City, Utah. He bought the property for $5.4 million in April 2022. And that became his entire world. The conditions of his house arrest were strict. He couldn't leave the property for groceries, a drive, or anything else. For years, YoungBoy literally never stepped foot off that land. According to a Billboard report, he hadn't left the property a single time since moving in. Every single day was spent within those walls and on that mount. But then, in early 2024, federal prosecutors came after him once again. The prosecutors accused him of violating his house arrest terms by using illegal substances, and the legal pressure just kept mounting. His trial date was actually postponed when a U.S. district judge put the case on hold, pending a Supreme Court ruling on the Second Amendment. His lawyers were essentially arguing that the gun laws he was accused of breaking were unconstitutional. In April 2024, while still on house arrest, he was arrested again, this time for possession of a controlled substance and a deadly weapon. By December 2024, he was sentenced to 23 months behind bars. He served his time in federal corrections before moving to a halfway house in Phoenix, Arizona. His official release date was set for April 26, 2025, but he actually got out early on April 10. Within days, he was right back on Gravedigger Mountain. That is the full arc. What's wild to me is that through the arrests, the violations, the sentencing, and the prison time, that mountain was always there waiting for him. He always came back. Gravedigger Mountain is his one constant. But I can't wrap this up without talking about the music the mountain produced, because that's the other reason this place is legendary. YoungBoy was under house arrest for years, but he didn't slow down for a second. He dropped project after project, album after album. While most artists would take a break when life gets this complicated, YoungBoy actually worked harder. Having that studio in his house with nowhere else to go meant music was his only escape from the confinement. The crown jewel of it all was Compliments of Gravedigger Mountain, an album named directly after his mountain empire. And you can hear it in the music too. It's raw, reflective, and completely unfiltered. Both fans and critics consider it some of his most emotionally honest work, because it was created in total isolation. There was no outside noise and no distractions. Just YoungBoy, the mountain, and the studio. When other rappers talk about being real, it's hard to compare them to what YoungBoy produced while literally confined to a mountain on house arrest. He was churning out platinum-level music from his mountain prison without ever publicly complaining. He just kept pushing forward. The most insane part is that the isolation intended to silence him actually provided the most creative environment of his career. The mountain didn't slow him down, it leveled him up. Now that he's back, speculation is already building about new music coming out of Gravedigger Mountain. While his camp hasn't made an official announcement, his track record suggests he won't stay quiet for long. If another project drops from that mountain, you can bet it's going to hit differently. Here is one of the most interesting twists in the entire story. In February 2024, while still under house arrest, YoungBoy actually listed the Mill Creek mansion for sale with a $5.5 million asking price. Once it hit Zillow and real estate sites picked it up, the hip-hop world went into a frenzy. He never gave a public reason for the sale, but people speculated that with his trial approaching, he might have been preparing for a move back to Louisiana. Maintaining a $5.5 million Utah property didn't seem to make much sense at the time. The listing painted it as a luxurious retreat with resort-style living and panoramic vistas, all the high-end features we've already broken down. The property sat on the market for a while, but then, after the sentencing, the prison time, and the halfway house, something unexpected happened. When he was released in April 2025, he went straight back to the mountain, even though it was still up for sale. He moved back in as if he had never left. That tells you everything you need to know. Gravedigger Mountain isn't just a real estate investment to him. It's his identity and his home. It's the place where he evolved into something beyond what the Baton Rouge streets intended for him. Even when logic suggested he should move on, he chose to return. Think about it. NBA YoungBoy, with a net worth estimated between $6 million and $15 million, keeps choosing this Utah mountain over any other place in the world. Honestly, you have to respect that. Let's bring this all together because we've just covered the full scope of NBA YoungBoy's massive Utah empire. This man transitioned from federal weapons charges in a Louisiana jail cell to a $5.4 million mansion in the Salt Lake City mountains. He arrived, looked at the landscape, and decided to name it Gravedigger Mountain because it represented exactly who he is. He stamped his entire identity onto that mountain and made it legendary. He rode horses, tore through mountain trails on ATVs, and even got married up there. He raised his kids on that land and built a recording studio where he produced some of the most impactful music of his career without ever stepping foot off the property. He studied religion, attended therapy, and looked out at the Salt Lake Valley every morning through floor-to-ceiling glass, finding genuine peace in a place that was designed to be a cage. Then, he secured it. While other celebrities hire basic security, YoungBoy deployed an actual army. Ski masks, Alaska, 47s, bulletproof vests, and guards at the gate stopping neighbors with cookies at gunpoint. To show what real loyalty looks like, he even bought one of those guards a house right next to his own. Even after being arrested again and serving more time in prison, the second he was released, he went right back home to Gravedigger Mountain. This isn't just a real estate story or a celebrity lifestyle piece. It's the story of a man who found something in the mountains of Utah that he couldn't find anywhere else. Purpose, creativity, peace, and family. He built a mountain empire around those things. Honestly, it's one of the craziest stories in hip-hop right now, and most people didn't even know the half of it until now. If you learned something new today, or if this story blew your mind, you already know what to do. Drop a like on this video. It helps the channel more than you know. Subscribe if you haven't already, because we're just getting started with deep dives like this one. Leave a comment down below and let me know which part of this story surprised you the most. Was it the horseback riding, the AK-47s at the front gate, or the fact that he actually named the mountain itself? I want to hear from you. If you're looking for more content like this, deep dives into the lifestyles, the empires, and the stories that never make the headlines, stay tuned. I promise you the next video is going to be just as wild. I'm out. Catch y'all in the next one. Peace.